This is Amy with Creative Catapult Coaching,
And Megan with Focus Like a Mother and Change HP.
and we are here with the Control Alt Think podcast. And today we're spending some time talking about how we feel when something feels like a demand, even if it's not intended to be, because that happens a lot sometimes.
Yeah, so I've been playing with some reminders of like, hey, get this task done. Hey, do this, do that. And it sort of backfired.
At least you, given your knowledge and your age and where you are in life, at least you recognize part of the what you're experiencing and can put some language to it, which, while maybe not 100% helpful, at least you can go, oh, this is where I'm getting irritated.
Yeah,
It's
so,
demand avoidance because somebody or a external thing implied you should do something.
or your body decided that you needed to do some bodily function, and you're just like, I I don't want to do that right now. Just depends on how strong of a demand. Everybody's brain has a different level. Some people have very strong, some people. So the only reason I learned about this, Amy, was when I had kids. So I started learning about it when my oldest, who is neurodivergent, um, we were seeing different, clinicians and stuff, and I found out what just demand avoidance in general was. But all kids experience this in some ways when they're
Uh-huh.
super like resistant and willful, like you need to put your shoes on. No. So a lot of parents and childcare providers and caregivers learn if you give a kid, a small child, options. So my daughter is very um, independent and strong-willed at age 2. Um,
And
and she
that's your
doesn't like to be
youngest,
told
right?
what. Yeah, so 2-year-olds, they're super uh
Right.
resistant to demands. So if you kind of think of it like that, well, if I give you options, then you're more likely to pick. So I learned as a parent, the advice someone gave me was pick two options that you're okay with to give your child the choice. You can put your shoes on now, or you can put your shoes on in 2 minutes. I'll set the timer. Which do you want? You can try to go to the bathroom now, or you can try to go to the bathroom in a few minutes when the timer goes off, whatever. You can go to the bathroom downstairs, you can go to the bathroom upstairs, just giving a choice as long as you're comfortable with both choices, not you can put your
Hmm.
shoes on now or you can go outside barefoot. Just depends on what you're comfortable with. But I hadn't really thought about how it applies to my brain until the last couple years that it's going, oh, well, what if I give myself choices? Or
Right.
what if I stop putting pressure on it? But it still comes up. It's just with that self-awareness of, oh, I didn't forget to do that thing. I'm resisting doing that thing.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
think noticing that and going, was this really a moral thing, or is there a reason that, again, resisting? Is it fatigue? Is it choice? Is it somebody else told me to do it, and therefore I have no, I'm feeling kind of like my own inner 2-year-old. Don't tell me how to do it.
Or is it true avoidance? So we've talked in our coaching calls before about like, oh, I haven't been able to reply to that email. Am I resisting it because it feels like a demand, or am I resisting it because I have some emotional attachment or I'm worried about.
Or it feels overwhelming, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like in thinking about my own to-do list often, I will make a reasonable sounding plan for the day, and then I don't want to do any of it, like the next day.
Hmm.
So I've often used kind of a strategy, and I felt really weird about it for a lot of years. I still do sometimes, but basically, I'll avoid doing whatever's on my to-do list, but I'll do a whole lot of other stuff. And that can actually be a super productive way to do it, is because it's like I'm usually still doing things that need to be done or I had an intent to do, but because what I set for myself yesterday feels like a demand today, I just won't do it. which is
So
kind of
is
dumb.
that similar to procrastination cleaning? I'm procrastinating on this thing over here because I'm not ready to do that yet, but look, I got this whole other thing clean because I
Maybe
do.
it might be, but again, I think it may depend on the scale of
Okay.
um, when I'm procrastination cleaning because I can't deal with getting ready for my meeting with my bookkeeper that's happening tomorrow, and it's going to cost me $500 that I'm not ready. That's a different thing in my head than, I'm put clean the kitchen on the list and I now decided to fold laundry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the first one sounds like it's got a lot more than just avoidance tied to it. There's a lot of other emotional pieces tied to it, um, most likely.
Yeah. And
That's
again,
like me
I
with
am not
emails.
as well versed in this, but I do find it often interesting to go, okay, so if I'm avoiding something, one of the questions I'll ask is, does it feel like a demand? And I don't always know the answer, but often I start realizing that, yeah, the reason I can't return that email is I feel like it's expected or it's too late or, there's some sort
Mhm.
of demand that feels like a demand. And not logically is it impacting my, choices in the matter, but somehow it still feels like I'm being a teenager and I'm just like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's like my brain's being a teenager. Because for me, it's like, um, I may want to do the thing, but I just can't do the thing right now. Like just like it's there and it's living in my head, and the rent that it's charging is the anxiety that goes with it, but I can't do it. Um, and it could be that way. We just talked before the call about some of the language that could be used of um, there were a lot of like open-ended questions of kind of like your to-do list, and then in the
Mhm.
morning being like, I don't want to do any of those things. Well, then instead asking yourself, what does feel manageable today? Or kind of those sorts of shift in the tone that we use in the dialogue with ourselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And again, I think a lot of it is just, it's an interesting thing to, again, make it less moral and shift to, ooh, this feels like a demand
Hmm.
versus I'm bad for not,
Yeah.
or what's wrong with me because this thing's on my list. Why can't I do it now?
Yeah. Mine are really bad if it's something external. I think we've talked about this before. I don't do thank you notes anymore. I can't. They feel very overwhelming and demanding. And I used to love writing like really personalized, I really appreciate XYZ. Here's how I want to use it. Like I'm all excited about it. Really good thank you notes. That's how I was raised. But
Hmm.
at some point, they just feel like a demand. So what I have done is I have told myself I am not a bad human for not doing thank you notes, and that I show my appreciation in other ways and my gratitude in other ways. But it has been a major mental shift of because I was raised that you do thank yous for like everything. Um,
Yeah,
but it feels like a demand. It feels like something I owe somebody, and then it gets just really painful to do and unpleasant.
yeah. What's an interesting shift in the things, again, as adults, so we can make the intentional decision to do or not do, especially once we realize this feels like a demand. I don't like the way it makes me feel. So, okay, now what am I going to do about it? And
Hmm.
sometimes we may choose to push through or find ways to push through because that makes the most sense. And there are other times that it's like, you know what? This feels like a demand. I can deal with it differently.
And
Either
as you learn that,
ask
hmm
or using, like you said, some more open-ended questions and approaches and seeing if there's ways we can view it as a suggestion or an option. instead of just something black and white, must do it now.
Yep. And the only other thing that I'll add in there, since we're at our kind of 10 minutes, is I have also learned in the past few years the self-awareness of and sharing, so not just the self-awareness, but sharing that or communicating it with others who need to understand why I'm not doing something or I'm unable to do something in the moment. So past managers or because now I work for myself, but so past bosses, just like my last one or two of like, hey, if you bug me to like if you are a micromanager and you bug me 10 times a day about X, Y, or Z, I'm actually like really not going to be able to get any part of it done. Like my brain will not let me. Um, but the other one, the big one is communicating with my husband and sharing like, hey, when I need to get something done, if you ask me about it, like just sharing what language or what ways of asking or encouraging me, he's found ways that are actually helpful versus like, have you done this yet? Just gets very like, oh, now I can't. Um, but
Right,
we've at least had really good open communication and having the self-awareness of it's not the other person meaning to set my brain off. It's my brain resisting what it thinks is a demand. And I just need to communicate to the other person, hey, I need you to present this in a different way, and then I can go get that done. But I also have to trick myself into doing things.
right.
So
Well,
that's my
and
only.
anyone finding this may have heard of the term PDA, depending, which is currently classified under autism. We're not talking necessarily about PDA, also depending on which school of thought you're in.
I got him.
Thank you. My words
So
having a hard time today.
the the older title of it is pathological demand avoidance, and the more neuroaffirming recent phrasing is persistent drive for autonomy. So you'll hear it called both things. They're both PDA, but it's in that case, it's an extreme form.
All people have demand avoidance. Neurodivergence, we may have more demand avoidance for a lot of reasons, but that doesn't necessarily qualify as a PDA profile. I don't feel, you know, that I've got enough knowledge to really even tap into that space to talk about tons of resources online. Maybe we'll hit on it on another day, but just knowing that everybody has demand avoidance and some people have extreme versions of it is
And that's why I
probably a good place
mentioned
to
kids at the
start.
beginning, because everybody growing up, toddlers and teenagers. Think about toddler and teenager brains. They really want to be independent and autonomous. And so it's just the same thing with your brain of it's just trying to decide how to keep whatever level of autonomy makes it comfortable. And everybody's level is different. And with a PDA diagnosis, it's just a very high level of autonomy.
Yeah. And even what I've heard is even things that you want to do with PDA
Hmm.
can set you off. And again, I don't know how closely related this is to sort of like some of the ADHD or other neurodivergent freeze or, fight or flight. Again,
So
we're
how
getting into a
tied to
whole lot
nervous
of other
system.
domains but yeah, just know that domain avoidance is sort of normal. There are ways to work with it. And that's my thoughts for the moment.
Yep.
I'm Amy with Creative Catapult Coaching.
And Megan with Focus Like a Mother and Change HP.
And you can find both of us online if you want to chat or work with either one of us. Take care. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.